Ladies and gentlemen, let me speak directly to the warrior in you. Not the one dressed in armor, but the one clothed in scars. The one who has been through storms, disappointments, rejections, and delays, but still woke up today. You see, today I want to tell you a story, not a fantasy, not a myth, but a reminder, a story about a man with no fear. He wasn't famous, he wasn't followed, he wasn't even favored, but what made him different was that when everyone else stepped back, he stepped forward. When life screamed, "You can't," he whispered back, "Watch me," and the world watched, not because he had power, but because he had purpose, not because he had support, but because he had strength. This man could be anyone. And today I want you to see that this man might just be you. Fear is a powerful emotion, but it is often misunderstood. Many people assume that fear only exists when danger is real and immediate. However, fear is not always a signal of external threats. Sometimes it is the inner whisper that questions our worth, our calling, and our capacity to move forward. Danger may be real, but fear is often the imagination magnified. It exaggerates the risk, amplifies the uncertainty, and paralyzes action, not because of what is out there, but because of what we've allowed to take root in our mind. Fear, therefore, is not the absence of danger, it is the surrender of purpose. It is the moment when a person chooses comfort over calling, survival over significance, safety over destiny. Purpose demands movement, risk, and commitment. It will often lead you into unknown places, call you to confront giants, and push you beyond what is familiar. It does not ask for guarantees. It asks for faith. But fear challenges that faith. Fear convinces us that staying still is wiser than walking into battle. It persuades us to silence our voice, dim our light, and delay our dream. When we allow fear to speak louder than our conviction, we don't just avoid danger, we abandon purpose. And purpose cannot live in a place where fear is in control. People who do great things are not fearless. They are faithful. They feel the fear, but move anyway. They understand that the danger may be real, but their purpose is greater. The person who surrenders to fear becomes a prisoner of the moment, while the one who holds on to purpose becomes a pioneer of change. Fear feeds on indecision. It grows stronger when we hesitate, when we doubt, when we procrastinate, but when we act with clarity, even in uncertainty, fear begins to lose its grip. The power of purpose is that it gives fear a boundary. It says, "You may be here, but you will not leave." Too often we wait to feel brave before we act. But bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's a refusal to let fear have the final say. A person driven by purpose will walk into a room full of doubters, stand before obstacles, and step into visions that make no logical sense. Why? Because the conviction of purpose outweighs the illusion of fear. Fear often demands proof. Proof that you will succeed, that you won't fail, that everything will go right. But purpose only requires obedience. It asks, will you trust the seed in you even when the soil is dry? Fear cannot answer that question. Only purpose can. In every generation, those who shifted nations, built movements, and changed history were not those who lived without fear, but those who refused to be led by it. They stared down impossibilities and moved anyway. They didn't wait for certainty. They were certain of one thing: their assignment mattered more than their anxiety. That is the essence of living a life of purpose. Fear may knock on your door, but it doesn't deserve a seat at your table. Because when you allow fear to lead, you don't just avoid risk, you abort destiny. Boldness is not a personality trait reserved for the loud, aggressive, or extroverted. It is a product of something deeper, something forged in the unseen places of the mind and heart. True boldness is born when clarity meets conviction. Clarity alone is not enough. Many people see the path ahead, understand what they must do, and even recognize the cost. They have insight, vision, and understanding, yet still hesitate. On the other hand, conviction without clarity is passion without direction. It's the fire with no form, a storm with no target. But when a person is both clear on what they are called to do and deeply convicted that it must be done, a kind of boldness rises that cannot be shaken by fear, delay. Clarity is the ability to see purpose beyond confusion. It is what separates wishful thinking from intentional living. Clarity shows you the mountain you were born to climb. It wipes the fog from your inner lens and reminds you why you were created. Turns distractions into noise and vision into focus. But clarity by itself can be fragile. Life has a way of challenging your vision through hardship, through failure, through betrayal. Clarity may show you the what, but without conviction, you may not survive the how. That's where conviction comes in. Conviction is the unshakable belief that your purpose is not optional. It is the fire in your bones, the unrelenting voice that says, I must. It is not moved by applause or opposition. It is not driven by emotions, but anchored in truth. Conviction is what keeps you steady when the journey becomes costly. When clarity meets conviction, you become dangerous to limitations. You don't just wish for impact, you demand it through action. You don't wait for open doors. You knock until one opens. You don't pause in uncertainty. You press forward in faith. That's boldness. Boldness doesn't need certainty of outcome, only certainty of assignment. When a person knows who they are, what they carry, and why they're here, they move differently. They speak with authority. They walk with confidence. They confront resistance without apology. They are not reckless. They are rooted. They are not arrogant. They are aware. Boldness that is rooted in purpose is never about showing off. It's about showing up. People often ask how to become bold. The answer is not found in pretending to be fearless. It is found in discovering your purpose so clearly and believing in it so deeply that fear becomes irrelevant. Fear may speak, but it no longer decides. Challenges may rise, but they no longer define your pace. The bold do not always feel strong. They are simply unwilling to surrender. When clarity meets conviction, ordinary people do extraordinary things. They step into rooms where they once felt unworthy. They pursue dreams that once seemed impossible. They endure seasons that break others, not because they are superhuman, but because they are super focused. That is the power of boldness, born from vision and belief. It changes not just the person, it changes everything they touch. A man with no fear is not someone who lives without challenges, resistance, or moments of uncertainty. Rather, he is someone who refuses to allow those elements to dictate his actions or delay his progress. He does not operate from a place of caution, but from a position of courage. He understands that waiting for perfect conditions is often a disguise for procrastination. Perfection is an illusion that many use as an excuse to avoid failure. But the man with no fear knows that action is greater than ideal timing. He sees that most breakthroughs happen not when things are easy, but when the pressure is high and the risk is real. He knows that if he waits for the wind to be favorable, he may never set sail. So instead, he builds his own boat, raises his own sail, and commands his own direction. This kind of man has learned that opportunity is rarely handed to anyone. Fully prepared and perfectly equipped. Life doesn't pause and wait for you to feel ready. It keeps moving, and those who move with it, despite uncertainty, are the ones who shape the world around them. A fearless man takes initiative. He shows up even when the resources seem insufficient. He makes decisions even when the outcome is unclear. He understands that the conditions will often feel hostile, but his purpose is not based on conditions. It's based on conviction. He knows that comfort zones produce little, but courage zones produce legacy. The man with no fear builds while others debate. He acts while others analyze. He creates while others criticize. He has come to understand that everything great began as something small, incomplete, or misunderstood. Instead of waiting for permission, he moves with purpose. Instead of waiting for the crowd, he leads with clarity. His fearlessness is not in ignoring the facts, but in refusing to be bound by them. Where others see lack, he sees potential. Where others see threat, he sees opportunity. And where others stall, he accelerates. He creates his own conditions by tapping into something higher than the world around him. He draws from vision, discipline, and inner power. He learns through failure, adapts through opposition, and rises through rejection. Every moment, he acts without fear. He builds momentum. That momentum becomes force. That force becomes influence. That influence becomes impact. He does not need a guarantee because his steps are guided by belief. Not just belief in himself, but belief in the purpose that drives him. Fearless living is not about the absence of trouble. It is about the refusal to bow to it. The man with no fear has trained his mind to see resistance as preparation and pressure as fuel. He does not shrink back when the path is unclear. Instead, he pioneers it. He doesn't pray for easier battles. He grows stronger armor. And as he keeps creating conditions through movement, mindset, and mastery, the world eventually bends to accommodate the reality he refused to wait for. He doesn't chase ideal circumstances. He causes them. A man who fears nothing does not see failure the way most people do. Where others see an end, he sees information. Where some feel shame, he finds strategy. He faces failure not as defeat, but as data for the next attempt. To him, failure is never final unless you stop learning. Every loss is a lesson wrapped in pain. And every setback contains a seed of wisdom. He does not personalize failure or allow it to stain his identity. He understands that outcomes don't define him. Responses do. Instead of retreating into discouragement, he steps back and asks, what did this moment teach me? That question becomes his compass. Failure becomes a mirror, not a prison. It reflects areas of growth, gaps in planning, weaknesses in execution, not a verdict on his worth or his calling. This man is committed to progress, not perfection. He doesn't mind falling because he's already made up his mind to rise. His resilience is rooted in perspective. Where others mourn the door that closed, he examines why it didn't open. He studies his failures like blueprints. He dissects the decisions, the timing, the preparation. He pays attention not just to what went wrong, but to what almost worked. He knows that buried in the rubble of disappointment is the raw material for innovation. With every failed attempt, he gathers data. That data becomes direction. It informs his next move and sharpens his strategy. He doesn't get bitter, he gets better. When others hide their mistakes, he documents his. He keeps record of the risks that didn't pay off and the chances that misfired, not for the sake of regret, but for the sake of refinement. Each attempt becomes a step, and each step builds muscle, mental muscle, emotional muscle, strategic muscle. This is how he grows. This is how he evolves. His confidence is not in avoiding failure, it's in extracting value from it. He doesn't waste his wounds. He turns pain into pattern, missteps into momentum. This fearless man understands that failure is not a sign to stop, but a signal to adjust. It doesn't say you're incapable, it says something needs correction. He is humble enough to admit mistakes and wise enough to mind them for insight. He knows the cost of progress is often trial and error. In fact, he expects setbacks. He's not shocked when things don't go as planned. What surprises others fuels him. His emotional stability comes from knowing that failure isn't an enemy, it's a teacher. The faster he learns, the faster he moves. And because he refuses to internalize failure, he doesn't stay stuck. He doesn't pause for pity or wallow in what didn't work. He recalibrates, repositions, and re-engages. Greatness doesn't come to the one who never fails. It comes to the one who refuses to let failure define their story. The fearless man rewrites failure into feedback. He doesn't let it close chapters. He lets it create comebacks. While others allow fear of failing to stop them from even trying, he steps forward knowing that even if he fails, he is still moving forward. Because every failure carries more than frustration. It carries information. And that information used wisely will guide him straight to his breakthrough. True strength is often misunderstood. Many assume it's in how loud a man speaks, how aggressive he appears, or how forcefully he commands a room. But the strength of a man who fears nothing is different. His strength is not loudness, but unwavering movement toward purpose despite opposition. He doesn't need to shout to prove he's powerful. He proves it in his silence, in his consistency, in the way he keeps going when others stop. He is not motivated by applause, and he is not discouraged by resistance. He is driven by something deeper, a sense of destiny, a clarity of mission, and a vision that refuses to let him rest. He does not measure his progress by the noise around him, but by the alignment between his actions and his assignment. Opposition does not surprise him. It confirms he is on a path worth walking. He knows that every time he moves forward, something will try to push him back. But resistance is not a reason to retreat. It is a signal to press harder. He doesn't flinch in the face of criticism, and he doesn't crumble under pressure. Instead, he channels it. He uses the opposition to build endurance. Every battle strengthens his resolve. Every obstacle deepens his commitment, and every delay increases his capacity. He walks through storms others run from, not because he is reckless, but because he is rooted. His mind is made up. His eyes are fixed. His steps may not always be fast, but they are always firm. There is a quiet intensity in a man like this. While others are distracted by what's trending, he is focused on what is true. While many look for shortcuts, he chooses the long road because he knows it leads to legacy. His power is not in bursts of action, but in sustained effort. He shows up every day, even when nothing is changing. He plants, he waters, he builds. The fruit doesn't always appear quickly, but he doesn't panic. He knows his harvest is tied to his faithfulness. The world may not see the weight he carries, but he carries it anyway. The world may not understand his silence, but his silence is full of strategy. He is listening. He is learning. He is laboring. This kind of strength doesn't seek validation. It seeks impact. It is more concerned with progress than praise. This man doesn't react to opposition emotionally. He responds with purpose. He doesn't need to prove his worth because he knows his value. He doesn't chase noise. He creates movement. And in every season, whether applauded or ignored, he stays aligned with his mission. His strength lies in the fact that nothing external controls his internal compass. He remains calm in chaos, faithful in drought, and humble in victory. What others see as quietness is actually confidence. But the mistake for slowness is strategic patience. He is not trying to be seen. He is trying to make a difference. He is not afraid to be overlooked because he knows he is being prepared. His strength is steady, not shaky. It is built over time, tested by adversity, and proven through perseverance. So as we come to the end of this message, let every word echo in your spirit. True strength isn't in the noise you make, but in the ground you cover. It's in your quiet steps forward when no one applauds. It's in your refusal to retreat. Even when resistance rises, you don't need the world's validation to keep moving in purpose. You need vision, you need conviction, and you need the unshakable belief that what's in you is greater than what's against you. The loudest impact is often made in silence, through unwavering focus, consistent effort, and fearless persistence. Keep building, Keep walking, keep believing, because the strongest man is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who refuses to stop.